Hey there, we have like eons of stories to tell, so if you want to follow us along on this journey and keep up with all the stories that we have putting out, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Hope you enjoy. Thank you. Hey, what's up, everybody? Chad is here, and today we're starting Carnage. Now, I don't even know what to name this story. Like, I don't even know what to title this video, because I was gonna put Carnage goes on a killing spree, but that's so vague. Like, ever since Maximum Carnage, where he actually needed the like Spider-Man and Venom to team up to take this guy out, he's been a problem. Carnage has been a problem since he was born. Like it's very tough to say he goes on a killing spree and not just imagine every story he's ever been in. But this story here is really good. Like it runs like parallel to the Venom story that's going on right now. But I'm just doing this one right now because Venom's story is like 30 something issues and this one's only like 10 or 11 or no, I think it's actually like 12. Take that back. It's like 12 issues. It's not that long. But this story here is great. So what we pick up here. We pick up with Jonathan Shade, right? He's the detective on this case. He's actually one of the main characters of this story. It's going to be him, Carnage, and there's another guy, like the dude who's actually doing these crimes. He's the third main character. Like, we're just going to be following their adventures, right? So that's basically what's going on. So they get here and they realize, there's this crazy funky smell going on, right? So Jonathan Shade, he goes in and what he realizes is the artist is back, okay? Like, he's back doing his own thing, this is his MO. This is definitely the guy that we've been looking for, right? And we see this dude, he's been like murdered, like brutally murdered, right? Like, he's all strung up upside down. So they look at this guy's like stomach, like, like he's, his body's doing some weird things, his stomach's like squirming and stuff like that. And eventually he pops. As soon as he pops, there's like these butterflies that just starts oozing out of this guy, like just so many butterflies, right? So what Jonathan Shade realizes is he's not doing this, for publicity. He's not doing this to get the attention of anyone. He's not doing this, for Jonathan Shade, right? Like, he's just the guy that this dude is, that's just following this guy, right? Like, he's not doing it for any of that. There's no real rhyme or reason that they can actually understand what's going on here. But we actually switch to the artist himself. We find out who this guy is that Jonathan Shade has been following, right? The artist, the dude that's been doing all these different murders. So we find out, like, before he actually killed this guy, what he was doing. He's actually going over, like, who his father was, right? Like, his father was a mortician. And, like, it's basically showing that he's been around death his entire life, right? Like, that may have, actually coerced him into being what he is now, a murderer. He actually does it for, quote unquote, the beauty of it all. So all this guy's like cutting into this dude that he has strapped on a table. He's like going over, the beauty of death, all that different stuff. He realizes the person that he's been looking for, he comes a knocking, right? He comes up to the window and we find out this is Carnage. He's been trying to get Carnage's attention this whole time, right? Like killing all these people, stringing them up, just basically it's like an art form for him, right? Like, he's not just killing people and just leaving them there. He's like killing them, tying them up, stringing them up, basically just doing all these like artistic things with these people's bodies, right? So when Carnage gets here, he actually realizes this dude has been calling for him. He's actually taking notice of what he's been doing, right? He notices how many people he's killed, like all the stuff that he's been going on with this quote unquote beauty of death that he's been going on. Talking about how he's like, he scrawls the spiral symbol. You see that spiral symbol that's on Carnage's head? That's something that came from Absolute Carnage, right? So Absolute Carnage was a story that came out like a few years ago. It actually wasn't that long ago. That story was stupidly good. Oh my god, I want to do the Venom run by Donny Cates so bad, which honestly that run was like stupidly good in itself. Because Donny Cates, greatest writer ever, dude is amazing. That story, Absolute Carnage, the stuff that he was doing was insane. Like, I love Carnage, and that story did him justice. But that's where that comes from, right? Like, when he was, going around as a god and all that stuff, he had like the spiral on his head, and every time he would conscript someone, they would have that same spiral, right? So we switch back to Jonathan Shade. Jonathan Shade, he's actually meeting up with the guy that Kenneth was just slicing up before he met Carnage, right? Like, he didn't actually kill that guy. He just like spilled out a lot of blood, right? He didn't die. So he's just in the ER and he's just sitting there and he's talking to Jonathan Shade, right? So what he's telling them about all the stuff that this guy was saying to him about his dad, Carnage and all that stuff. Like, he saw who Carnage was, basically telling them all the stuff that they could use to try and find this dude, right? Because they've been on it for a while. They cannot find Kenneth Neely. Kenneth Neely, he's a slippery one. He's been going about it, and doing it and actually getting away, leaving like not enough trails for them to actually follow, right? So telling them this, he tells them the Kenneth's dad's name, because he was talking about his dad and all that stuff, telling them that he's a mortician, all this different stuff, right? And so they actually start going through and they're trying to find out who this dude is. They look up all the morticians, all the people with the same name as his dad, stuff like that, and they actually get a trail. So we switch back to the night that Carnage, there we go. Cletus isn't there. He's not there right now. We switch back to the night that Carnage met Kenneth Neely, right? And he's basically asking, you know, he's asking Carnage, you know, like I heard, you know, Cletus Cassidy is gone. Like, is he not with you? Like, is it just the symbiote? You know, like, is that what's just going on? He's like, okay, yeah, like Cletus, he's gone. Like, there's no Cletus. I don't need the weakness of a human holding me back. Like, it's just Carnage, right? And I'm doing my namesake. I am Carnage, right? So he's just telling them about all that stuff. And what Kenneth says is he wants to be the next host for Carnage, right? Like he admires Death so much. He's a fan of Carnage. He wants to be this next host, right? And what Carnage is doing is he's going to take this guy around and see what his resolve is like, right? He's going to see if he actually does this or if he, you know, just does this, right? Just like that. So after they talk, Carnage actually takes this guy back to where, you know, like the area where he's operating out of. He actually has Hydro Man strung up, right? And he's showing Cletus this guy. I mean, not Cletus. Dang it. Not Cletus. Kenneth. There we go. Kenneth. He's showing Kenneth all this stuff, right? Like showing him, you know, the stuff that he does, you know, like his different quote unquote art form of death. And what he's doing is he's basically going to kill this dude right here and essentially just absorb his power, right? That's essentially what's going to happen. He's going to take the molecules, absorb into himself, and he's going to have the powers of Hydro Man, right? So he's like talking to Kenneth, and what he's asking is, why would he bond himself to another host, right? Like, why would he have that setback in him? Because Cletus, he liked Cletus, but at the same time, he wanted to go off and do his own thing. Like, he wanted to go, you know, go amass power and all that stuff, and, you know, like do what he does, right? He wanted to go off and, you know, by his own means and do whatever he needed to do. So with him doing that, there's this huge rift that's just opening up, this huge portal, right, above the building that they're in. So while they're talking, Jonathan Shade actually shows up, right? Like, he shows up out of this portal, and he's basically there to arrest Kenneth Neely, right? Like, he's trying to get this guy out of the way. He, you know, he's been doing too much. He's got to go, right? So he ends up like passing out, sort of. He's like, you know, unconscious. And Carnage actually takes him. He imbibes a piece of himself within Jonathan Shade, basically like giving him the power, like the symbiote. Like, he actually has the symbiote now. And, you know, him and Kenneth Neely, they just take off, right? Like, they leave him there and they just take off. So Jonathan Shade, he wakes up in the ER. You know, he's at the hospital now. He was taken away. And he's like freaking out, right? Like, you know, he's telling them about what happened, you know, like telling them what's going on. And they're telling him that, you know, he should be, you know, he has to stay out of it for a bit, right? He can't be in the field, you know, he's been badly hurt. He has to just sit there, right? So when they leave, you know, they leave Jonathan Shade there, you know, he's just laying in bed. He gets up, and what he realizes is he has the symbiote, you know, he has all the memories and all that stuff. He's essentially Carnage, right? He has the symbiote. He takes off through the window and he's gone, right? And he's like, you know, like he's feeling it, right? Like, he's feeling what's going on. He's feeling the symbiote, you know, he wants to know. Carnage actually told him that he wanted to see how far he would go with the symbiote in tracking them down. So he's basically, you know, just, he's getting a feel for it, right? Just seeing what all he can do, right? So when Booth gets home, the other detective that was with Jonathan Shade, he finds Jonathan Shade in his living room. Jonathan Shade has just been sitting there chilling. You know, he has the files. He's looking at all the stuff. He's actually he's trying to figure out what's going on still. Like, he has this power. He's feeling better. He's ready to get back out there, right? So he's talking to Booth. So they realize that it was Hydro Man's blood at the scene, right? Like, he was the one that they killed. And basically what they're doing is they're realizing that, you know, like after Kenneth Neely linked up with Carnage, after they, you know, got together and started doing their things, the symbiote, he's running the show. He's the one that's taking them everywhere, doing all these different things, right? Like, Kenneth Neely, he's not the one that's, you know, the problem anymore, right? Like, he is a problem. Don't get me wrong, he's a problem. The stuff that he's been doing, like, it's definitely a problem, but Carnage is the one who's actually, you know, calling all the shots. So we realize is Carnage and Kenneth Neely, they went to go find more power, right? So the person that they went to was Dr. On the Spot, right? Because the Spot, he's a dimensional traveler. He can go anywhere that he wants with the little spots that he has. So we're really just figuring out what Carnage's main plan is. It seems like he's actually just amassing power for some big, you know, some big confrontation, but we don't know what that is yet. So we're going to end this video here. If you are new to the channel, subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and I'm going to see y'all in the next one.